Alright, so this is a tutorial. I want to talk how you can transfer an InfraWorks file from InfraWorks into 3ds Max and then into Unreal. So this is the file looks like in 3ds Max, and this is how it looks like in Unreal. A really large site. I will talk about some pros and cons of different options, and so you don't have to repeat the same mistake I did. The whole point about this tutorial is about level of detail and how to control the polygon number to make sure it's not very, very high, which will have a low frame rate in the future. As you can see, this file currently I have in Max is about 1.6 million, so that's a lot of polygons. So I will show you how you can possibly reduce the polygon number with some different method. For the sake of demonstration, I will just transfer a small site instead of the entire site. It's a lot faster to do that. The first thing you might heard about it is, in InfraWorks there's a way in the settings you are able to actually use here in data source surface layers. Actually is here in the model is in application options under the model generation. You can simplify the terrain to make a low poly, but this one actually does not work because when you export it's still using the high poly default grade. So even here, let me just show you, even this is a low poly terrain has been tessellated, but in the reality when you export it's always using this higher poly version to do the export. Alright, so we have to do this reduce polygon number later in 3ds Max. So that's one thing. Second is the this layer of I will just go ahead and open this layer so you know what I'm talking about. There is a surface layer. Here you can actually turn on, turn off the terrain and the road. I thought, well, maybe we can split the terrain and the road here, so we can export them separately. It's just a lot of easier later. In Max, you can merge them. But in reality is, if you turn off the terrain, it does not, or turn off the road, it doesn't really leave empty openings here. It just automatically fill the terrain. So this surface layer is more like turn off the operation rather than the visibilities. So you can see the whole road is disappeared if I turn off the visibilities. So it's not exactly like AutoCAD or 3ds Max. When you turn off a layer, it's just the geometry being hidden. But here is actually the whole operation has to be recompute to turn on, turn off that operation. So this one will not be very helpful. Another one is also not very helpful is the model explorer. And here you can turn on, turn off certain things, but it doesn't really allow you to turn off the terrain here. The logic in InfraWorks is all the features like building trees are built on top of the procedures of a terrain. So terrain is not really independent layer you can easily turn off. It's always associated with other layers. Okay, so that's just something I want to clarify before we export the model. Here, so let's go ahead export the model into Max. I will go ahead export 3D model. For the demonstration, let me turn on the tree because I think I turned off the tree. So here in I believe it's in the model explorer, I turned off the trees here. Yeah, just want to make sure the tree is on. Alright, so they show up. Cool. So let's go ahead export the model. Export 3D model, and I want to define polygon. I will just do a really small one, so we are not worried about the speed. I will just make sure I include everything. I want to demonstrate, and here I want to choose multiple files. I want to set a location to a place I can find it later. So let's give this name, actually I already did, let's give a new name, T station. I think that is the name I did last export. Well, let's give a new name. T station 2. That's a tow station here. So select folder. Then I just using the default export material, merge objects. I did not select large FBX. I think this is based on older version, which I don't like. So here is all the multi-file default name. Okay. So now you see this whole thing within the polygon is being exported, and here you can see the file is right here. They're not big. FBX also have the position files, show you the location. They're not very important in this case. You have trees, you have grounds. City furniture is actually the building. We also have buildings, right? I mean, city furniture is like the street light, and also whatever traffic light or mailbox or something you drive in, like cars or vehicles. This all belongs to the city furniture. Buildings is like a procedural building made in InfraWorks. Ground is actually include both terrain and road. This is not really ideal, but later we have to probably manually separate this in 3ds Max. You might also notice on the road, we also have the white markers on the road. Ideally, you want to separate these white markers as well, because they do not have collisions in Unreal. So you can maybe turn it off by a separate layer. All right. So just keep in mind we have a bunch of files exported from the InfraWorks. Okay, all right here. Then the next thing I want to do is to bring this into 3ds Max. Right. So I will create a new file. I do want to talk quickly about the scale. So by default, if you go to unit setup, you should set up this as a metric. But the system within this metric system is actually 1 unit equals centimeters. I mean, you can change this to meters, but by default, you want to keep as a centimeters. I find out this is a little bit easier to calculate because in the future, when you transfer this model into DataSmith, I can show you really quick. DataSmith automatically, assemble this DataSmith file. As you can see, all the geometries came in as automatic scale as 100. This is because Unreal recognized the unit from Max as centimeter, right? So it automatically put 100 as a scale to match this as a meter in Unreal. So centimeter to meter is 100. That's the reason this is all carried in with 100. So in Max, we just keep this as, centimeter. If you do want to change this to the meter, that's fine, but just keep in mind later you don't need that 100 in the DataSmith. Okay, so now we keep this as centimeter. Then we're gonna bring this FBX in. The order you put the file in is kind of important. Let's see E. Right. So let's see. I will bring maybe the tree first. Right. Click open. And here's something about the scale. You see, it has the default as a centimeter because I'm using my preset. You probably have just like a default preset. If you like, you can go ahead edit your preset. Just make sure under the preset advanced options, the unit, this is the place you can set up the scale. As you can see, if I switch to meter, the scale will be 1. So it's really smart. You can just define the scale you need. So right now the scale factor is 100 because I'm using a centimeter. So click OK. to have all the trees in. The first thing I would do after get the trees in is to check the scale. This is just very important. You want to make sure you're working on the right scale. So here, if I go to tools, measure distance, I can type, click. So here tell me this tree is about 50 meters. So that's pretty close to the real tree on site. Okay, so I have this guy in. I will rename this as tree. All right, and then I will turn off the visibilities, and then I will bring the next object. So this time I want to do maybe just the buildings. Right, same preset, because I know this is just centimeter. Oh, why not is being saved? Sorry, I probably accidentally saved as meter last time. So just make sure you are not mess up the unit. So right now they should be, yeah, it is centimeter. Let me save it. Okay. So if you turn on the tree, you can see the scale looks right. So you have 3 objects. The reason is this building has roof, facade, maybe it has a floor, so it's came in as 3. In this stage, you want to actually merge them. So the way to do that is you don't have to do layer if you follow my sequence. You only bring certain features at a time. So here, select mesh 1, then I go here, attach list. I pick mesh 2 and 3. You do see the tree is not visible here because I turned it off, right? So that's important. You make sure you turn off the things you already merged, so you not get confused. So 1, 2, 3 will be merged together. I will choose a match ID, and I will rename this to building. Right. So if you have hundreds of buildings, this will be merged as a single object. Then I turn it off. Then I will do the same thing for the next object. And this time I want to do the city furniture. As you know, this is basically just electric poles, street light, and other stuff. Okay, so yeah, again, just double check this is centimeter. This is converting to meter as display. And this time you have more objects. It's just because you have signage, you have a lot of stuff come in. So I will choose mesh 1, right, and then attach the list. You see, the point is you want to make sure the tree and the building will, was hidden, so you are not accidentally attached them. Rename this, I don't know, to city furniture, CF, right? Another convention is keep the name short, because Unreal don't like long names. So you have the, all the geometries here. All right, then I will turn it off, and then I will do the last one. And I believe this one will be the ground, 1.4. Click OK. This is relatively bigger because I have more objects, right, including this white marker. So this is something tricky. Before you merge them with attach, we actually want to split the road from the terrain. The reason is I think if you have like a super high polygon terrain, you do want to reduce the poly count. So here, if I turn on the edge face, you can see what I mean. This terrain has relatively high poly, especially some really tiny triangles. The road is actually pretty okay. In general, we don't want to change the road because they are relatively important. The vehicle is always interact with the road, so we don't want to change the road. But for the terrain, we can maybe merge and then do the optimization a little bit. And for the markers, I do want to separate them, so they will be independent objects. We will not have any collision for these markers. So let's do that first. I will select the marker. Well, let's see which one do we do first. Maybe we do the terrain first. That's a little bit easier to select, right? So here you can choose. This is the what is the best way to select the terrain. I think if you hold Shift, right, you can add your selection. Holding Shift, right. Oh, actually holding Control. I'm sorry. So you select all the terrain pieces. They are relatively easy because they are large. They are squared shape. So just select all of them. So have 6, 7, 8. In this case, you can actually turn on the layer, right? And then you can this layer turned on. Let's see. This is a toggle scene explore. Toggle scene explore. Oh, it's actually already open. Sorry, it's right here. They have a scene explore which do not display layer, but also you have the layer which display the layer. Just keep in mind they are here. So with terrain selected, I have 3 objects. I will go ahead and create a new. I will create a new layer. So basically, add active. How to do this? Add into a new layer. I give this layer name terrain. Okay, so that's it. And then I will turn off the 0 layer. You only have 3 terrain layer geometry highlight. I think this is good. Then I will go ahead to do the attach. This is a little bit easier if you have like hundreds of geometries. Before you attach them, you put them into a layer, so it's only displayed objects in the same layer. That's a trick I use a lot. So have mesh 7, 8. You want to attach them. As a result, you have this mesh 6, which is the terrain. Let's just rename it. Actually, I can just drag it out from the terrain because I don't need the terrain layer anymore, right? And we'll just simply, oh no, I shouldn't do that. I should rename first. That's okay. Let's do that. Let's just call terrain. Okay. And then for the terrain layer, I actually don't need a layer anymore. I can remove these empty layers. It's gone, right? So I have the building. We have the city furniture. We have the tree, and also we have the terrain. I will turn off all the existing renamed objects. So the only thing left is something related to the road, right? But again, this road has 2 pieces. You have white marker, and also you have this road. Basically, if you want to pick the white marker, you can just say, hey, select this. This is mesh 5. You can rename to white marker. If you have a lot of this in different location, you might create a layer first, put these multiple markers in the same layer, and then attach them, just like the way we did the terrain. But right now, it seems like I only have 1 white marker object, so I will just simply rename it to white marker. Okay, and then turn it off. I don't have white marker anymore. Everything left is a part of the road. Just in case, keep in mind this white geometry is actually a part of the road. If I delete, you can actually see a gap, right? So it's not like a floating markers in the middle. We want this be a part of the road instead of the marker. All right. So have this 1, 2, 3, 4 left. So they are all part of the road. So what I will do is just select any of them, attach list, make sure everything else is hidden, then I attach, and then I will rename this to road. All right, so done. So this is how you can bring an InfraWorks file from InfraWorks into 3ds Max. So let's save the file, and let's give the file, make sure it's in E drive 3ds. Let's give this T station 2. All right, so that's it. You got the file saved. As you know, this texture is still reference back to the FBX file, which is okay. You don't need to do anything. So when you export into DataSmith, you will see this texture will be carried into DataSmith. So here, if you want to double check T station 2, right, we have ground, we have buildings. Within the ground FBM, you can actually see all the geometry, all the texture associated with it. I don't really like the long name. This name might be an issue in the future in Unreal, because Unreal don't like the long names. But we'll see. If we get some error message for compiling our package in Unreal, it most likely is because it's long file names. Well, there's a way you can, just batch rename these three. Then in a max we can relink them. But I will leave that for later. Just keep in mind the name might be an issue. So what do we do here in Max before we export into Unreal? There's one thing I really want to do. I think the number 7 is a hotkey. You can see how many polygons. So right now we have 27K, which is fine. But in general, when you have a file from a large scale area, you maybe have a terrain which has a lot of polygons. Okay, so in this case, the terrain has 5K, almost 6K. It's not super big, but you might have like millions of polygons. So the point is, we want to reduce the polygon number. As I mentioned earlier, it doesn't work if you just reduce a polygon in InfraWorks. It looks low poly, but when you export, it still remain as a high poly. So you don't want to do it here. In Unreal, it has a tool name is, I'll show you really quick so you know what I mean. It has a tool name is level of detail, which allow you to automatically, I'm using the tree as example since I already have this open. You are able to automatically generate number of level of details. In this case, I did 4 for the tree. This level of detail is basically if you pay attention to the number of polygons. So right now I have 177K. If I do the lower, I should go here. If I switch to the lower level of details, let's go to the, I will disable the auto so you can see what I mean. So if I switch to 1, this is 88K, so 2 is even lower. And this low poly level of detail can be generated automatically in Unreal if you give the number of level and then apply changes. So this level of detail will change, depends on the screen size. So if the object is really far away, tiny in the screen size, it will swap to a low level of detail. But this situation doesn't really work for our site model or for our whole forest, because the screen size is always very big. So current screen size is 3. Even you are really far away, or even you are looking at this area, you saw there's no trees, but screen size is very big. The reason is we merged all the trees as a single objects, so the screen size is always remain as pretty high. And this technique doesn't really work very well with our model. It works better if you have like one tree and you duplicate hundreds of times in Unreal, and each tree has independent level of detail and screen size. But for us, this is not really working for the level of details. So I prefer we do some optimization in Max before you transfer to Unreal. So it's a little bit easier, you have the full control. Okay, so pay attention, we have 5K, and then I will go ahead to do modifier, and I will do, let's make sure you select objects. Yes, we did. And then we do the Pro Optimizer, PRO. If you just type PRO, you can see Pro Optimizer. And I want to do is actually protect the material. So here's the keep textures. So it's not destroy the UV in this case. Keep textures. And I will do calculate. Tell me, hey, you have almost 5K, almost 6K triangles. What do you want to do? And then I will try to do 50%. Boom, you see something pretty fast, right? So you have half of the size now. Here's the rule of thumb. I don't want the terrain be like 2 millions, 5 millions. That's definitely gonna be an issue. So if you can reduce the terrain to below 1 million, or even half, like 500K, that'd be ideal. So here I will just push the limits a little bit more, like 10% in that case. The point is you want to make sure the terrain does not look bad if you push the limits, right? So in this case, if I turn off the edge display, you see the terrain still looks pretty smooth because it's preserved the boundary. If you turn on the road, right, you see this boundary is still matched very well. There's no gap in between. Otherwise, when you drive a car, the car may be just falling down to this tiny crack. Even the crack is really tiny. But there might be some situations like this. So here, if I turn off my road, you can see the terrain start to bleed into the road. So this is actually a not good situation. You have overlapping objects now. So that means you probably pushed this too far. 10% is really far. Even you protect the borders, sometimes it has these side effects. So I maybe want to go back to 50. And you can see this border is much better. It match the road relatively closer. All right, so here's the terrain, here the road. If I turn on the edged face, you can see they are deviated a little bit, but still relatively close to each other. Right. So this is one way to kind of reduce the polygon number for your geometry. But for me, I think this might also introduce another problem in the future of this tiny overlapping. It might look pretty awkward. I don't know. We have to probably see that in Unreal. But let me see other part of the polygon. Yeah, the key point is you want to make sure there's no weird gap in between. For road in general, I do not do optimization. I think this is already pretty optimized. You don't have to do anything. Terrain is the only one you might need some optimization. Alright, it seems like good to me, about 50% down. Let's try to do 30%. Every single polygon you can reduce is always a benefit. So here, if you turn off, this is the original. After optimization, you see the difference. Right? You basically removed a lot of unnecessary details from the terrain. Okay, so I think 30% is fine. I will leave as it is, and then I save the file again. So right now this polygon is, you can tell this one is 1,000 some hundred physics now. It used to be 6K, now it's a 1.7K. That's a significant number of remove. Okay, so next thing I'm going to export this into Unreal. So here, one thing I want to make sure is the center point. I do have this one relatively close to 0, 0. You see 0, 0 is right here, but it's floating in the air. Usually in this case, I will save the file. I will save as a different file name. So this one, I will move around. So maybe give T station 3. I will simply move this closer to 0, 0. It just makes things a lot easier in the future. Also, I want to, move along. Oh, sorry. I shouldn't do this with hidden objects, right? You are accidentally As I do that, only moved a piece of your entire side. So I open everything, turn on everything, change. You can use a space bar to lock if you want to not worry about deselect this accidentally. So I put this near close to 0, 0. Space bar to unlock the selection. So you're done. That's the new version I saved by relocate. Also, I like to do is to, the terrain, we did a little bit optimization. Usually I need to collapse all. I just merge all the change into pixels, into the vertices. They are not taking too much memory. Also, last thing I will do is just quickly X-form, reset, select it. So it will freeze XYZ coordination if there's any large number. This will be 0, 0'd out. Alright, then I'm going to export this as datasmith. Right. So this is all done. It looks nice. Select all, export, and I will use datasmith. Right, I will give a name. I will probably keep everything in the same place so it's easier I can find. That's using the, that's still using the 3ds Max export. Let's give the name T Station 3. Okay, cut the frame. Alright, we're done. Then here in Unreal, I'm going to create, let's start with a new level. I don't need to save. And here, let's go ahead and create a new folder. Let's give the folder T Station 3. And then I'm going to import the file. Right, T Station 3, datasmith. Oh, sorry, I did the wrong thing like last time. For datasmith, you have to do here through the plugins. Okay, so use Station 3, datasmith. You have to define. Oh, actually, this is fine for import datasmith content. Let's see. Since I create a new folder, T Station 3. Right. Material, geometry, resolution, that's fine. We don't have animation. Bring it in. Right. So it should carry in all the geometries plus texture, material. Oh, you know what? It's actually automatically create a subfolder. See, T Station 3. So that means we don't really need the original folder. Oh, I don't know that. Okay. So now you can actually, let's just clean up this. I will drag it under T Station 3. Move here. The reason is in Unreal, if you want to keep the structure clean, do not create folders within folder. It just add unnecessary length to your files. As I said, Unreal do not like long path or long file name. This maybe can cause you trouble when you package in the future. So always I kind of not like this kind of situation, have two folders nested one under another with exactly the same name. It's not good. So here it's trying to compile 760 shaders from this max file. You might wonder why there are just 760 shaders. It's actually, let me explain a little bit. Actually, when you bring in the file, they have individual textures, but sometimes you also have diffuse channel, transparency channel, self-illumination channel. So each channel will be compiled individually in Unreal. That's the reason even in this case you don't have that many texture shader in Max. Once you bring into Unreal is a large number suddenly. So for the tree you only have 2. So this will be treated as at least a couple of shaders, one control the diffuse, one control the transparency. Okay, so this 700 shouldn't take that long. I think my computer is getting slow. The reason might be because I'm trying to change the structure of the folder. Meanwhile, it's saving. That's definitely not a good practice. But I will just maybe pause the recording. So I will come back once this is being saved. Okay, so this file rename just being complete. So I have this geometry directly under the T station 3. Alright, so that's good. And after that we can just make sure we have a clean geometry, material, textures. That's all good. Then I will go ahead and save all. Oh, for this untitled map, yeah, I will save that as well. So this map I will save directly under my new folder T station 3. So this is called T3 map, right? So it's a good idea you change, you save everything in exactly the same location. So in the future, if I want to give this folder to another person, I will know, hey, here's the level and here's the data smith, and this is all the files associated with it. You don't have to worry some file reference outside this folder. So I have this file done, and if you look at this from top view, that looks pretty good. It's in a 0,0, right? From the right, you can see it's kind of floating, but that's good. And also the scale is correct. You can tell by click, you can see the terrain come in. Let's see, T station, the scale is 1. Well, let's see, I just want to make sure the scale is correct. So if I play, yep, the scale is right. Okay. Yep, the scale is correct. Alright. Yeah, I guess the reason is when we do the data smith, well, I don't want to do this again, but I think there is a control on the scale which was set up in the correct setting. Let me just double check because I think it's worth to take a look. If you don't want to recompile all the shaders, like 760 shaders, that might take for a while. You can always go to the geometry, and here, let's say city furniture, you can write, and then you can re-import. In this case, it only brings in the data smith for the geometry. You don't have to re-import the shaders. So that means in Max, if you did something, you export data smith to the same name, and here you can just simply re-import. Right? That's a trick you will have. Okay, so here just to, I think this scale looks right. Just keep in mind if it's not right, it might be because the scale factor, you might want to do 100. But I think right now it looks perfectly fine. And I can then set up the collision. Okay, so go to geometries. The only thing I need to set up collision is the road and terrain. So here in the road, I'm gonna set the collision from the default. Let me turn off the level of detail. In the collision session, I will use complex collision, and then click save. So basically, the complex collision will override the simple. You can see that right here. Same thing, I will close this. I will do this for the terrain. Right. And here I will choose collision as complex. Save, close. And for the mark, because I know the white mark do not really need a collision, I will set the collision equals, can I do no collision here? Well, seems like I do not have control on the type of collision right here. Oh, I can do this, do no collision, right? So the mark, right mark, do not have collision at all. Alright, it's all done. Then I will go ahead, maybe set up a vehicle. I have a vehicle blueprint. Let's just drag the seed in right here. Right. But you can see the scale is correct. And I want to make this seed be able to process. So type pong. Here you can see automatic process the player 0. So the player 0 is the default player. Now if I play, we should see the car is not falling down. It basically sit on the ground because collision gonna hold it, and then you can drive around. Right? Seems like everything works pretty fine. If you draw across the white mark, you don't feel the bump. Right? That's pretty smooth. Right. You can also see the terrain has been optimized as a low poly, but if you cross the low poly terrain to the road, there's no gap. That's the reason you don't see the car suddenly flying or drop down, right? Because this is matched pretty well with the boundaries of your road. But again, if you optimize too much, it might have a gap left. Okay, so I think this is all about the whole process, how to do the whole site into Unreal. Keep in mind, we do not need to do the optimization level of detail here within Unreal. Just the reason is it doesn't really count the screen size very well because we already merged all the geometries into one geometry. So here if I go to the geometries here, let's save it. You can see the geometry is already being merged, so it's not really the screen size is always very high. I think that's what my point is. You won't be able to get really far away from this. Even are flying, it still take a lot of screen size. Alright, I hope this is going to be very helpful for anyone want to bring the whole site, large site, into Unreal.